Nathan Cole was in his element. Seated at the head of a polished conference table, he commanded the attention of the room with the ease of a seasoned litigator. His team hung on his every word as he outlined the strategy for a major corporate merger. The tension in the room was palpable, but Nathan thrived on it. For him, this was just another day. Nathan had spent years perfecting his career, climbing the ranks of the legal world to become one of the most sought-after names in corporate law. His days were meticulously planned, every minute accounted for, and his focus was unwavering. To outsiders, Nathan's life seemed perfect, a symphony of power, control, and success. The sound of soft footsteps broke through the intensity. His assistant, Grace, hesitated at the doorway. She rarely interrupted meetings, knowing how much Nathan valued focus. But today, her expression betrayed unease. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, leaning in, "there's an urgent call for you, a notary. They insisted it couldn't wait." Nathan glanced at her, irritation flickering across his sharp features. "Tell them to leave a message," he replied curtly, turning back to his presentation. Grace hesitated. "It's regarding a personal matter." That gave him pause. Nathan's personal life was as tightly controlled as his professional one. He couldn't recall the last time someone had the audacity or the reason to breach that boundary. Reluctantly, he nodded and excused himself, leaving the murmuring team behind. Stepping into the hallway, he accepted the phone Grace handed him. "Nathan Cole," he said briskly. The voice on the other end was calm yet firm. "Mr. Cole, my name is Jonathan Blake. I'm a notary with Blake & Associates. I'm contacting you regarding a legal guardianship matter." Nathan frowned, already assuming a mistake. "You must have the wrong person. I'm not involved in any guardianship cases." "I assure you, there's no mistake," Blake replied. "You've been named as the legal guardian for Mia and Ethan Carter, the children of Emily Carter." Nathan froze. Emily Carter. The name hit him like a blow, pulling him back to memories he had buried years ago. Nathan hesitated outside the modest suburban house, adjusting the cuffs of his suit jacket as he prepared himself. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew this encounter would be nothing like the controlled negotiations of his office. The social worker opened the door, leading him into the living room where the Carter twins sat on a worn couch. Mia and Ethan, 8-year-old twins, mirrored each other in posture. Arms crossed, expressions guarded. Mia's sharp gaze bore into Nathan, her dark eyes filled with suspicion. Ethan sat closer to her, gripping a stuffed dinosaur as if it were his lifeline, his expression less defiant but no less wary. Nathan forced a small smile. "Hi, I'm Nathan. I knew your mom." Mia was the first to speak, her tone direct and unyielding. "If you knew her, why didn't she ever tell us about you?" The bluntness of her question startled him, but Nathan kept his composure. "Your mom and I were friends a long time ago, back in college. We lost touch, but she wanted me to look after you now." Ethan glanced up at him, his voice quiet but trembling. "Are you taking us away?" Nathan hesitated, unsure of the right answer. "Your mom wanted me to take care of you. She trusted me to make sure you're okay." Mia's lips pressed into a tight line. "We've been fine without you. Why do we need you now?" The words stung more than Nathan expected. The room grew heavy with silence, the tension palpable. As he drove back to his high-rise apartment, Nathan replayed the encounter in his mind. Mia's defiance and Ethan's fearful eyes had unsettled him in ways he hadn't anticipated. That evening, he sat in his dimly lit office, staring at Emily's letter. Her words echoed in his mind. "I chose you because I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself." Nathan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. What was she thinking? He muttered to himself. But no matter how much doubt gnawed at him, Emily's unwavering trust wouldn't let him walk away. Nathan stood in the doorway of his sleek, minimalist apartment, watching as Mia and Ethan hesitantly stepped inside. The space, with its cold steel fixtures and floor-to-ceiling windows, was nothing like the warm, cluttered home they had left behind. Ethan clutched his stuffed dinosaur tightly, his eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. "This place is too shiny," he mumbled under his breath. Mia trailed behind, her expression unreadable. It doesn't feel like home, she said flatly, her gaze never meeting Nathan's. Nathan cleared his throat, attempting to sound more confident than he felt. I've made arrangements to make things comfortable for you. There's a playroom down the hall, and if there's anything else you need, just let me know. The twins exchanged a glance but said nothing. Nathan gestured toward their rooms where the staff had meticulously arranged new furniture, toys, and clothes. But the extravagant gestures fell flat. Mia inspected her new room with a cold detachment, while Ethan sat silently on his bed, his dinosaur perched beside him. Over the next few days, Nathan tried to establish a routine, but it became clear that material comforts couldn't bridge the emotional gap. The twins, still reeling from their loss, resisted his every effort. Mia was cold and distant, answering his questions with curt one-word replies. Ethan, on the other hand, was more reactive, knocking over a vase one moment and refusing to eat the next. Hoping to create some order, Nathan hired a nanny, a cheerful woman named Margaret with years of experience, but the twins rejected her almost immediately. Mia openly ignored Margaret's attempts to engage her, while Ethan clung to Mia like a shadow. The tension in the apartment grew unbearable. Nathan found himself retreating to his office where he buried himself in work, trying to drown out the feeling of failure. One evening, a particularly loud argument erupted between the twins and Margaret. Ethan was crying, clutching his dinosaur, while Mia stood protectively in front of him, shouting, "Leave him alone!" Nathan intervened, sending Margaret home for the night. As the twins stormed off to their room, slamming the door behind them, Nathan sank onto the couch, rubbing his temples. For the first time, the man who thrived on solving impossible problems felt utterly powerless. Nathan sat in the quiet of his living room, the DNA results still lying on the coffee table. The confirmation that Mia and Ethan were his children filled him with a whirlwind of emotions: shock, guilt, and a profound sense of responsibility. For the first time, Nathan allowed himself to imagine what Emily had gone through raising them alone. She had faced challenges he couldn't begin to comprehend, and yet she had chosen him as their guardian, believing in the man she knew he could become. The realization spurred him into action. The next day, Nathan called Margaret, the nanny, and told her her services would no longer be needed. "I need to do this myself," he explained, his tone resolute. That evening, the breaking point came. Nathan had arranged a formal dinner at his apartment with key clients. Everything was meticulously planned: gourmet food, fine wine, and a pitch that could secure a major deal. He had instructed Mia and Ethan to stay in their rooms during the event. Halfway through the main course, the twins burst into the dining room. Ethan dragged his stuffed dinosaur, his messy hair and wide eyes drawing every gaze in the room. "Why don't you ever eat with us?" he asked, his small voice cutting through the hum of conversation. Mia appeared moments later, arms crossed, her expression defiant. "Maybe if you talked to us instead of hiding with your work friends, we wouldn't have to come find you," she said sharply. Nathan's clients exchanged awkward glances, and embarrassment burned in his chest. He guided the twins back to their room, but their words stayed with him. Later that night, after the guests had left, Nathan knocked softly on their door. Mia and Ethan were sitting on the bed, their expressions wary. "I owe you an apology," Nathan said, his voice steady but soft. "I've been so focused on trying to fix things for you that I forgot the most important part: being here for you." Mia looked at him, her gaze searching. "So what now?" Nathan met her eyes, determination etched into his face. "Now. We do this together. No more distractions, no more running." Nathan stood in the kitchen the next morning, staring at a box of pancake mix. It had been years since he'd cooked anything that wasn't instant or reheated, but today was different. He needed to start fresh, with Mia and Ethan. When the twins shuffled into the kitchen, their expressions were guarded. Ethan clutched his stuffed dinosaur, and Mia crossed her arms as she leaned against the counter. "What are you doing?" Mia asked, raising an eyebrow. "Making pancakes," Nathan replied, trying to sound casual. "Thought we could eat together." Ethan's eyes lit up, though he quickly masked his excitement, glancing at Mia for approval. She gave a small shrug, her expression skeptical but curious. As they ate, the conversation was halting at first, but soon Ethan began rambling about dinosaurs, rattling off names Nathan could barely pronounce. Nathan smiled, asking questions and encouraging him to share more. That afternoon, Nathan decided to take them to the park. Ethan ran straight for the playground, climbing and sliding with unbridled energy. Mia, however, lingered near the bench, her arms still crossed. "Not a fan of slides?" Nathan asked, sitting beside her. "I'm not a little kid," she replied curtly, her gaze following Ethan. Nathan hesitated before pointing toward a nearby basketball court. "Do you play?" Mia glanced at the court but shrugged. "Mom used to play with us sometimes." Nathan stood, extending a hand. "Let's see what you've got." Mia rolled her eyes but followed him reluctantly. Nathan, in his work shoes and rolled-up sleeves, fumbled the ball more often than not, earning a rare laugh from Mia. "You're terrible," she said, smirking. "Hey, I'm just warming up," Nathan replied with a grin, his awkward attempts drawing more laughter. By the time they left the park, Ethan was clutching a small toy dinosaur from a nearby arcade, his face glowing with joy. Mia walked beside Nathan, her usual guardedness replaced by a tentative smile. That night, as Nathan tucked Ethan into bed, the boy whispered, "I like today." In the next room, Mia was sketching. Nathan hesitated at her door. "Good night," he said softly. "Good night," she replied, her tone warmer than before. For the first time, Nathan felt like they were beginning to trust him, not as some distant adult, but as someone who cared deeply for them. Nathan's newfound connection with Mia and Ethan was soon tested by an unwelcome surprise. One afternoon, as he reviewed legal briefs in his office, his assistant Claire entered, her face unusually serious. "We've received this," she said, placing an envelope on his desk. Nathan opened it, scanning the contents quickly. It was a formal custody claim filed by Jacob Carter, a distant relative of Emily's. Jacob, a small-time contractor from upstate, was contesting Emily's will, arguing that his biological connection made him a better candidate for guardianship. Nathan's jaw tightened. Does he even know them? Claire shook her head. There's no record of him being involved in their lives, but courts can be unpredictable when it comes to blood relatives. The news weighed heavily on Nathan. That evening at dinner, Mia and Ethan sensed his distraction. Ethan fidgeted with his fork while Mia watched him carefully. "Are you mad at us?" Ethan asked hesitantly. Nathan blinked, startled. "No, not at all. This has nothing to do with you." "Then why do you look like someone stole your car?" Mia asked, her tone sharp but probing. Nathan hesitated, unsure of how much to share. Finally, he said, "Someone is trying to challenge my guardianship, but it's nothing you need to worry about." Mia's eyes narrowed, her skepticism clear, but she didn't push further. In the days that followed, Nathan threw himself into the fight. He met with his legal team daily, poring over every detail of Emily's will and preparing to prove that he was the best guardian for Mia and Ethan. The twins picked up on his tension, but they also noticed his determination. Mia began asking questions about the case, her sharp mind dissecting the legal jargon Nathan tried to explain. Ethan stayed quieter, but he often hovered near Nathan, seeking silent reassurance. When the court date arrived, Nathan entered the courtroom feeling a mixture of nerves and resolve. He wasn't just fighting for custody, he was fighting for his family. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Nathan took the stand. Across the room, Jacob Carter sat with his lawyer, his expression smug. Nathan ignored him, focusing instead on the two faces that mattered most, Mia and Ethan. They sat with their court-appointed advocate, Mia's gaze steady and unwavering, while Ethan clutched his stuffed dinosaur tightly. "I won't pretend I'm perfect," Nathan began, his voice calm but firm. "When I first became their guardian, I didn't know what to do. My life was about work, deadlines, and contracts, but Mia and Ethan changed that. They've shown me what it means to care for someone, to show up even when it's hard." He glanced at the twins, his voice softening. Emily believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. I owe it to her, and to them, to honor that trust. When Nathan stepped down, he caught Mia wiping her eyes discreetly. Ethan gave him a small, shaky smile, and Nathan's chest tightened with emotion. Finally, the judge delivered her ruling. Based on the evidence presented and the explicit wishes of Emily Carter, custody of Mia and Ethan Carter is awarded to Nathan Cole. Relief flooded Nathan as the courtroom murmured around him. Mia and Ethan ran to him, and he knelt down, wrapping them in a tight embrace. "You're stuck with me now," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mia managed a small smile. "We'll see how long you can handle us." For the first time in his life, Nathan felt truly at home. The atmosphere in Nathan's apartment had shifted. Once cold and sterile, the space now hummed with life. The sleek furniture was softened by colorful drawings taped to the fridge and stray toys scattered across the floor. Nathan's mornings were no longer a blur of rushed coffee and emails. Instead, they began with shared breakfasts at the kitchen island. Ethan would chatter endlessly about dinosaurs, his stuffed T-Rex always by his side, while Mia offered her sharp, sarcastic commentary that often made Nathan laugh. One Saturday, Nathan decided it was time for a proper celebration. He packed the twins into the car and drove to a lake house he had rarely used, a peaceful retreat surrounded by pine trees and shimmering water. Ethan bolted out of the car as soon as they arrived, racing to the dock to peer into the water. "Can we swim? Can we fish?" he asked, his excitement infectious. Mia, always more reserved, trailed behind, taking in the scenery. "It's nice," she admitted with a small smile. The weekend unfolded with laughter and new memories. Nathan taught Ethan how to fish, though the boy was more interested in naming the fish than catching them. Mia spent hours sketching by the water, occasionally showing Nathan her work. One evening, as they roasted marshmallows by the fire, Ethan climbed into Nathan's lap, his energy finally giving way to sleepiness. "Good night, Dad," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Nathan froze, his heart swelling. He glanced at Mia, who sat nearby, her sketchbook forgotten. She met his gaze and said softly, "Good night, Dad." Tears pricked Nathan's eyes as he wrapped Ethan in his arms. "Good night," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. In that moment, surrounded by the crackling fire and the quiet presence of the twins, Nathan realized he had found something he didn't know he was missing: a family.